Harry's Wife, part 100.33. Can anyone get through to her? Commonly, I see in the comment section people expressing their amazement, their aghastness, their complete bamboozlement at the behaviour of Harry's wife. Of course, more and more of you start to understand it by reference to my explanations concerning that what she does not do when it comes to the interactions with other people is driven by her narcissism. I've explained in a separate video, which I'd encourage you to watch, that there's no such thing as a part-time narcissist. For instance, as I'm talking to you now, I don't suspend my narcissism or my psychopathy. Accordingly, because I'm contemplating people watching my videos, I need to have control, and therefore I ensure, as part of gaining that control, I utilize the benign provision of information and entertaining education to you. As I'm narrating, or dictating, or working on a video, I also contemplate the reactions of those that will be listening and watching the material. This provides me with a dollop of thought fuel. It's not particularly potent, but there it is. So at this point in time, as I'm speaking to you now, as I create this particular video, my narcissism contemplates the reactions of other people in terms of interest, amusement, puzzlement, but it's all generated by what I have done, and therefore I'm able to contemplate that forthcoming fuel. This doesn't allow me to create character traits, acquire them as I'm speaking right now, and there is, of course, the residual benefit that comes from the creation of this by way of the extension of my legacy, and also the money that's made with reference to the pertinent video placed on YouTube. So, when I'm creating this video, even though I'm sat here on my own, with no human being around me, none even in sight out of the windows of this particular seat of power, my narcissism still functions. Why? Because what I'm doing relates to the involvement of other people, namely, talking about Harry's wife, and of course the fact that I have a viewership. If, for instance, I was just sat making myself a drink, that's not affected by my narcissism, because I'm not doing it in contemplation of an interaction with another human being. I'm simply quenching my thirst. But the point remains that nearly all of the time, the narcissism is present, and whenever it comes to the involvement of another person or the contemplation of the involvement of another person in some shape or form, the narcissism is there. And therefore, it's the same with Harry's wife. When she is giving a speech, her narcissism governs her behaviour. When she's applying the electric cattle prods to the pink pods of Prince Harry, her narcissism is driving her behaviour. When she ignores something that's stated about her in the press, she's governed by her narcissism. When she gives an interview, she's governed by her narcissism. When she gives instructions to staff, she's governed by her narcissism. When she lies in bed contemplating what she might do, she's governed by her narcissism, where it relates, of course, to what she might do with another person. While she's doling out some spicy poontang in a respite period to Prince Harry, she's governed by her narcissism. Accordingly, that narcissism is always there to act as a self-defense mechanism when there is the interaction or contemplated interaction with another person. As you know from my work, because she's a mid-range narcissist, she continues to create gaffes, faux pas, and mistakes. Her narcissism retains the prime aims, but there is the collateral consequences that flow. And of course, she has a raft of advisors, publicists, PR people who must surely be pointing out to her, that didn't work, or we don't think this is a good idea, or have you considered this? There are no doubt some stylists having pulled their own hair out saying, Fridge by Valentino is not a very good idea, or the Bouncing Berry of Harlem is just going to be ridiculed. And you would think, of course, that somebody who professes to want to be on the world stage and indeed is on it would listen to those advisors. Some of the time she does, and that's what's behind some of the planning that goes on with the merchandising, etc., with the deals that have been done, where she does listen. But in many instances, what other people say to her will offend her sense of control because it'll be challenge fuel. She believes that she knows best. Her narcissism causes her to do that. She believes that she knows better than anybody else, that she knows everything there is to know about beauty, fashion, politics, humanitarianism, Peppa Pig, Captain Underpants, whatever it might be. She is the expert. And therefore, if you suggest that she is wrong and there is a better way of doing something, you are going to threaten that need for control, and therefore her narcissism will react by rejecting what you have to say, sometimes politely, sometimes in a dismissive and haughty fashion. In other instances, ridiculing the suggestion that has been made, sometimes appearing to listen, but then jettisoning it and say, no, I think we'll do it my way. Accordingly, where people are trying to explain to her that the things that she's proposing to do are going to end in disaster or problems, she simply won't listen. Her narcissism doesn't allow her to do so, and it hasn't evolved to that extent whereby everything she does is magical and turns to gold, but rather invariably starts to turn to shit. Accordingly, those that are seeking to advise her, to get through to her, to point out that this isn't a good response, that this is going to cause a problem, will not be listened to. An example of this, of course, shows with the attempts to silence people, which only then causes more people to go on the side of the person that she's attacking and to fight back even more noisily. As I mentioned in a video yesterday, she cuts the head off the Hydra only for 7 heads to then grow back. Such is the growing level of her unpopularity. Accordingly, nobody can get through to her in terms of steering her and guiding her with regard to decisions about things that she's doing. But furthermore, you might then ask, but surely someone can get through to her to point out there's something very wrong with her. The answer to that, of course, is no. As an unaware narcissist, her narcissism will not countenance any suggestion that she's a narcissist, that she's wrong, that there's something wrong with her, that maybe she's the problem, because that would amount to a threat to control, and the narcissism would not be doing its job if it allowed those criticisms to be taken on board, reflected on, and acted upon. Therefore, they are jettisoned. They cannot permeate that membrane of the narcissism. For many of you listening, you'd find that extraordinary. You have the capability where someone sits you down and says, look, I don't know if you've realised, but, and they perhaps explain something about your behaviours which you weren't aware of. Often, you're ashamed, you're embarrassed, you're taken aback, and you'll listen. You'll reflect. And sometimes you accept what's being told, sometimes you need to think about it. In other instances, you might disagree, but you will at least listen and reflect. The narcissist will not do so. Harry's wife can't because her narcissism simply will not let her. Even if you were to sit her down and say, look, you did this and it caused this problem, then you said this and this caused that problem, her narcissism will just sit there going, does not compute, does not compute. And instead, it causes her to revise history. I never agreed to that. That was such and such. Blame shifting, deflecting it onto somebody else. Well, it was a good decision that I made, but it was implemented by idiots. More blame shifting, claiming that the fault lies with somebody else in terms of the implementation of the decision that she made rather than the decision itself. If you were to sit down with Harry's wife with a long list of her transgressions, mistakes, and errors, every single one would be rejected by her narcissism. She would do so with a range of instinctive manipulations, pity plays, blame shifting, projection, deflection, denial, triangulation, cross-examination, false accusations, and so on and so forth. Every single time you put before her evidence to support the fact that she had caused a problem, her narcissism would reject it. The plausibility to which she would achieve this will vary, of course, given her mid-range status. In some instances, it will smack of plausibility. In others, it will seem rather incredible, the explanation that she gives. And, of course, she has the problem that her rap list is as long as that Pinocchio nose. And the problem is that once or twice, people would give the benefit of the doubt. and combine that with a somewhat plausible explanation, but when it racks up to scores of instances, it all points in one direction. You are the problem, but you simply can't see it. Anybody that attempts to discuss this with her, well-intentioned no doubt, will find themselves frustrated, undoubtedly devalued, put on the shelf, and possibly even dismissed from the position that they hold. Even where Harry, in a rare moment of insight, might just say, look, darling, I think you need to reconsider this, he will immediately go up against that membrane of the narcissism that will reject the suggestion and that will result in him being given a dressing down, or being told, I can't help it, and turning on the waterworks and blaming something else so he feels sorry for her and then retracts from trying to steer her in the right direction. Nobody can get through to her. Many empathic people, driven by their innate empathic traits of caring, compassion, decency, the desire to heal and fix, fall prey, alongside the desire to show the truth to the narcissist in an attempt to help them, to point out their behaviours, the error of their ways. But all that is happening is that their own emotional thinking is corrupting those empathic traits and using them against them to cause them to continue to interact with the narcissist with no gain to be achieved. They just provide fuel to the narcissist, which is what we want, and therefore we win. Invariably, you will meet with adverse consequences. The narcissist will be dismissive, insulting, perhaps even violent, and you will find yourself frustrated by another failed attempt to get them to see. You can see it, everybody else can see it, but why can't this narcissist, intelligent as they are? Well, that's the nature of the narcissism, of course, and you end up frustrated because you've not been able to get the message through. You will, of course, increase the risk of being hoovered by prodding the hornet's nest, and by interacting with the narcissist in such a futile discussion, you increase your own emotional thinking. Thus, the devil's pitchfork visits you as a consequence of your well-intentioned attempts to try and help the narcissist to see. And that is why you should never ever bother. There is no point trying to get through to a narcissist. An unaware one will simply reject it, and an aware narcissist recognizes what you're talking about, but finds it highly amusing that you're attempting to help, and they see it akin to a small child beating their fists against the edifice, the colossus that is the narcissist, and they will simply toy with you like a cat plays with a mouse. Nobody can get through to Harry's wife. And that's why those around her need to beat a retreat as quickly as they can from her, as you should always do so when you know that you're dealing with a narcissist. Once you know, you go, you get out, and you stay out. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.